Sean from Spinal Empty Soul here in beautiful St. Louis, Missouri at Firebrand Recording, which is a wonderful studio here, tracking our new record, Swan Song, which will start to be released one song at a time here in probably about June, and then the whole thing will come out at the end of the year. So keep your ears peeled for it and check it out when it comes out.
Hey, it's your favorite comedian, Anthony Rogers, live in his tour bus, yeah. But also, you need to get a beard like this. People have been talking. They said your shit looks whack. It looks weird. They can't tell your pronouns. You need to get a beard like this right now. And the only way to do that is by using Luxurious Bastard Beard Oil. Great smell, great function, great everything. Just get this. And there's directions on how to use it if you know how to read. But use the link in the description. Go to the website. Use promo code LEGENDARY. Get a discount. Do it. Thank you. Boom.
Hi, I'm Danny from 710 Glass. Come check my shop out. This is our Capone rig. 10 mil joint. Smoke out of his head.
I'm AJ over at 710. This is our Puffco selection. This is a Peak Pro. It is completely Bluetooth compatible to your phone. You can control it completely from your phone. Lights, how long you want your session duration, what you want it to burn at.
Hi, I'm Jay at 710. Come check out our large selection of American hand pipes and American made glass.
Dude, we have everything.
Welcome back to your favorite podcast. That intro was like interdimensional cable. It felt like, it felt kind of like a kind of weird intro, but cool. Support the sponsors. Check out Small Empty Soul's new album coming out soon. Releasing some new music. Today is going to be cool. We have an author who wrote a book, Persistence of the Soul. His name is Mark Ireland, and today we're going to discuss the afterlife. How you doing, brother?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Dude, yeah, no, thanks for jumping on, man. You're going backwards in your career a little bit, but I hope that I hope that your agent doesn't mind,
Oh, this is a sideline. I still have a corporate job, but I'm going to be hanging that up before too long, hopefully.
That's good, man. Like both are good for different reasons, I imagine. So, okay,
busy, yeah.
You are like a little bit deeper into the rabbit hole. I feel like I've been going down recently. I feel weird bringing this up, but for people watching at home, my mom passed about a month ago. Kind of a nuts time. And the first podcast I've been able to straight face talk about that. I've been avoiding it, even bringing that up. But Mark, you had a similar situation with your son, and then you kind of went down this rabbit hole that I've just started. I think of trying to communicate with the afterlife, prove the afterlife is real, prove consciousness doesn't die, prove the soul lasts forever type of energy. Am I correct, or correct me where I'm wrong?
Yeah, I guess that's one way of putting it. Yeah, that's correct.
It is kind of a rabbit hole. Like, so did were you Matt? So backstory questions: what happened to your son? That's not rude or pulling band-aids off or anything. What exactly happened and when?
So, well, first off, what's unusual about my background is I actually grew up with a father who was a medium and a psychic.
I remember that.
He was also a minister, but he had his own interdenominational church. So I saw the mediumship phenomena as a young kid growing up, and it gave me great comfort in knowing that we were more than just a body and a brain. And although I didn't follow my dad's footsteps or try to be the next version of him, I was always appreciative of his abilities, and they brought a lot of comfort to people, and gave me, a knowledge that we're something more. But it was when my 18-year-old son went hiking one day in the McDowell Mountains behind our home in Scottsdale, Arizona. He died of asthma attack. Now, we didn't know what it was at first. In fact, it was a week later that we found out. So that kind of catapulted me back into my dad's realm and his world, whereas I'd kind of done this conventional business lifestyle and just kind of doing the American dream thing. And then that just shook me and brought me back in initially because I just wanted a sense of connection with him. But it went beyond that. And all these things started lining up in a very synchronistic way that told me that there was a purpose behind this, and I had some work to do that ended up helping other people.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I couldn't imagine 18 is way too young, man. Like, so I guess like I feel like the similar thing. Like, so I don't know how to describe you've actually just tell a little bit of what you found. Sorry, I'm like kind of I'm trying to ask
no worries.
in the least craziest way of asking.
Let me just back up to the day that he passed. You know, that morning I actually had like a premonition thing, and so although I'm not my dad or trying to be out there in the public eye doing demonstrations or medium readings, I do get things now and then. And that particular morning, I had a dire feeling about my son and his plans for the day. I felt like another presence was with me. And it just felt like it was, he could, this wouldn't be good. And
you think it was an angel?
Maybe, I don't know, either that or the presence of my dad or another spirit could have been. It felt angelic, actually. It was kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Almost had a glow, but I don't know that I was seeing it through my eyes either. It's hard. It's a hard thing to describe.
I felt the same thing. Like, I don't want to interrupt your story, but I felt the same thing that when you said that, I numbers were being weird and pointing out. And then I felt like this weird, like, I already knew when they called me what it was about. It was weird. It was a weird feeling, but I didn't mean to interrupt your story. Go ahead, man. Sorry. I was just,
no worries. So, anyhow, he ended up going on this hike, and, I tried to talk him out of it. I said, Brandon, don't go on the hike today. It's too windy. And he says, we're going, Dad. I'm 18 years old. What do you worry too much? So we went across town. It was later that day. I got an emergency call. We rushed back, and there was a ambulance, fire truck, helicopter. And within a short period of time, we found out that he'd passed, but no one would speculate what had happened. His best buddy came to me later that evening and said, I was with him. He started complaining he said his arms were kind of numb and his heart felt like it was beating rapidly, but they didn't know what it was. And he'd had asthma before, but never that severe. And anyhow, it was unlike any other asthma attack he'd ever had. So his friend Stu had tried to resuscitate him, but was unsuccessful. It was 3 days later, and I didn't have, again, the authorities wouldn't tell me the cause of death. They didn't know. An autopsy had yet to be done. But I talked to my uncle. Now, my father had passed by this time, but my uncle was still around, and he had very similar abilities. And he connected with me when I was in the mortuary, actually, by cell phone. And he said, hey, Mark, I wanted to tell you something. He says, last night I tried to make a connection. I couldn't get anything. But this morning I was doing my meditation, and that's the way I start every day. And he said that your dad came to me, and he wanted you to know that he was there when Brandon passed. Brandon was a little confused at first, but he helped him adjust. Brandon wanted you to know that you're the best parents he ever could have had. But then he gave me the evidence, because, again, remember, we didn't have the cause of death at this time. He said, your dad said that Brandon's death was caused by a lack of oxygen in his bloodstream that caused his heart to fail. Then 2 days later, I talked to the physician who had conducted the autopsy, and she said, your son's death was caused by a severe asthma attack that drove his blood oxygen levels down, causing cardiac arrest. So my uncle gave me the cause of death 2 days before I got it from the autopsy results. And that was one of the first early things that kind of happened. Another thing, this is kind of on my own, and it might have even been earlier than that. I wanted to feel a sense of direct connection. So I went into a darkened room, which is actually a walk-in closet with the lights out, and tried to meditate quietly and wanted to connect with him in some way. And within a short period of time, I saw his face scroll like across my mind's eye with my eyes shut. And it was glowing, and I felt joy and happiness. And then right after that, I saw a symbol that I'd seen before, but I didn't know what it meant. It was a cross with an oval loop at the top. And so after I had this experience, I went and Googled that and found out it's the Ankh, which is the oldest cross of human history, dating back about 5,000 years to the ancient Egyptians, with the lower portion representing physical life and the oval loop at the top representing eternal life. So I felt I got a coded message, and it was more meaningful to me because I didn't know what it was. And so had I known what that meant, I could have said, okay, my subconscious mind is trying to make me feel better. So those were two of the first early things that happened that kind of set me on this path to kind of re-engage in my dad's world. And they were healing things too, and helpful to the family and other friends to hear these things.
Yeah, no, yeah, I believe that. I believe in all that stuff, man. I definitely believe the soul doesn't die. I definitely think that we're just the ones suffering here, missing them. I think that's a huge part. Like, yeah. So do you see him in your dreams at all, or anything like that?
I have, I think, quite a few times, but there's one that really stands out above all the others, and it happened actually. It's been a year and a half after he passed. But what was ironic was I went to bed that night and I prayed to have a visit with him, and I prayed to be able to remember it. And that night I had an experience that was more vivid than waking reality, more vivid than this right now. And I went into this glowing white room with only 3 walls. Where the 4th wall should have been was infinity, the rest of the universe. It was like strange. It was like we were meeting in the middle of some place between the 2 worlds. And I saw him there and I said, oh, Brandon, I can't believe you're here. I've got to go get Mom. I got to get your brother, Steve. I got to get Stu. I said, I missed you so much since you died. And he said, I didn't die. My father died. And then I was puzzled by that. And then later I'm like trying to figure out, what did that mean? And then his buddy Stu had come by our house one day. And as he was leaving, I was telling him about this, and it just came to me. And it was, oh, well, he didn't die because we don't die. Life goes on. But I, his father, died inside and was born as a new person on a new life path from that point forward, because my life totally changed. And that's what I got out of what he said to me. Now, what's really crazy is about 3-4 months ago, a woman wrote to me. She had read my first book, which is called Soul Shift. And in this book, she said, I had this experience and it was phenomenal. I saw my son. It was so real. But then I always questioned if I'd just dreamed it or if I'd imagined it. Then I went to page 189 of Soul Shift. I think she said page 189. And she read my experience, and it turned out it was identical to hers. She said her son was in a 3-walled white room, and there was no 4th wall, and it was a glowing white room. So when she read that, she was just blown away. So anyhow, yeah, I've had many other dream experiences too, but that one stands out above all others. I've only had that type of dream twice, once with my son and once with an aunt who has passed.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, my mom was sick over a period of like 4 years. So, and I was at her house a lot, like for like months on end, like kind of like helping her out and stuff. And I would feel stuff around it all the time. Like I felt like good and evil around it all the time. Like it was like, I'd feel dark energy sometimes. I feel like really good energy sometimes. And like, I had a dream the week she passed away. I actually had a dream that she was like, I'm a comedian. I don't know. I just met you, so I don't know if you knew that, but so I was having a dream that she was like she was better, but she was like going to all my shows and like hanging out, like I'd be hanging out with people in like one room, and she'd be like laying on the couch or something, you know what I mean? I'm in this weird kind of, probably similar to how you are if you're a psychic, like our medium. Also, like I have a lot of like medium friends that are around, just kind of like because I'm in entertainment and stuff, and a lot of this is just very interesting to me. And one of the co-host actually, who's not here right now, but she's a medium, and she told me that when she was meditating. After my mom passed, she said that my mom was like, I'm always with you. And I felt that I saw that before because she was like so sick for so long. I felt like she just wanted to see what I was doing. You know what I mean? She wanted to be able to experience what I was doing and like go to the things I was doing, because I'd always like tell her about it and stuff. And I kind of like, I seen that and like the week of, like everything was weird the week of. Like I was in this weird elevated sense of like I was really happy, like, which is weird, it would have crushed me more if I was like already depressed. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like and I definitely believe that. I felt her around me. Like I felt her check on my sister first, because I could tell my sister probably is taking this way harder. But I felt her check on my sister, and then I felt her check on me a couple times when I grabbed her ashes in particular. It was like I could feel that she was making fun of my driving, like she would have. She would have just roasted my driving, like in real life, you know.
Well, I'm sure she's around you a lot and she cares about you, and she's probably, like the other person said, free from all the physical ailments. So she's feeling great. She's not restricted or having those issues now. I was going to share also a couple of remarkable stories about things that happened early on, because I know before we started, you said you like the stories and people like the stories.
No, I do, bro.
One of the most remarkable ones actually involved my wife. Now, 2 weeks after Brandon passed, I met with an intuitive, and she told me, she said, within 6 months, I think you'll see Brandon at the side of your bed. And so 6 months later, we went on a cruise, and it was to celebrate Brandon's graduation from high school. Now, he didn't make it to that. So we took his older brother and we took his buddy Stu. We were gone for a week. The day we got back, my wife was sitting at the foot of our bed, and she suddenly felt the presence of another person in there with her. And she actually knew it was Brandon, and she saw him as a shadow figure out of her peripheral vision. So that's cool enough in and of itself. But what really confirmed it was the next day we got a call from a friend named James Linton. Now, James had borrowed that bass guitar you see in the middle there. That was Brandon's bass. So James is a fingerstyle guitarist, composer, singer. He had an in-home studio, and he was doing some new recordings, but he needed a bass. So he asked if he could borrow Brandon's bass before we left for the cruise. We said, sure. So the day we got back, my wife had that experience. The very next day, James calls us, and he's like, hey, Susie, I've got something to tell you, but I don't know how to share this. She thought he'd probably broken the bass, but that wasn't it at all. He said, look, I was in recording this particular song, and I felt another presence in the recording studio with me, and I actually saw a shadow figure out of my peripheral vision. And then I saw flashes of white light, and I thought I was hallucinating. So I went and got water. I got something to eat. I took a shower. But each time I came back, it was stronger and stronger. And he said he finally gave in and said, okay, Brandon, what do you want? And he said he felt then guided to redo the bass line in the song and the lyrics. And the end result is a song called The Other Side. He said, this is the best song I've ever written, but I didn't write it. So that was pretty wild. But for them to have those identical experiences one day reported after the other when he had no knowledge of Susie's was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Like, so your son like put a lot of music, I guess, in, is what I'm assuming, from the instruments and stuff.
Yeah, it's one of my hobbies. I have done a studio album of original music myself. I put it out a little over a year ago. But if anyone goes to my site, they'll actually find a link to it. They could check it out. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple and Amazon and all those. Or you could just listen to it directly from the site. There's a link on my regular author site, not on the homepage, but the others you'll see a list of kind of links to the right side. But yeah, I feel like I've actually composed some songs in an inspired way too for my son. I was told by some of the mediums that I know that would happen, and I think it did. So if people check it out, check out track 4. It's called What You Can't See. And it's exactly about what we're talking about right now. And it's as though I was speaking to a skeptic about it, that you don't believe in anything. Well, maybe open your mind and open your eyes a little bit. Or actually, I use different language in that, but that's kind of the gist of it. The other thing I wanted to touch on real quickly, not to take over here, because you probably want to direct this in a certain way, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the mediumship, because my dad was a psychic and a medium. And what really drew me back into getting into that a little bit more, meeting a lot of mediums. I've met researchers in the field. I actually have a certification program now where I test mediums to vet them for grieving people, because I know that grieving people are in a fragile state and they need somebody with a reputable background who actually can do it. There are a lot of people who think they can do it, and some have a little bit of ability. There are frauds out there too, but there are some people that actually can do this at a high level. So it was 3 weeks after Brandon's passing. I was watching a news excerpt on the NBC affiliate in Phoenix, and they were showing something about a research program being done at the University of Arizona at the time, where they were testing mediums under blinded conditions. So the one that I saw had Alison Dubois in it. Now, she later became big because of the show Medium. That was a network show, but this was before that. And she was in there separated from the sitters. The sitters are the people that are receiving the reading from her. She can't see them or talk to them directly. She's asked a series of questions by a researcher, and then she has to answer them. And I was really impressed because she was giving a lot of really detailed information. And then they debriefed with the people afterwards, and it was really highly specific and accurate. So I thought, geez, I'd love to get in that lab someday, and I'd love to get a reading from Alison Dubois. The very next day, I get a call from a man named Jerry Conser out of Dallas, Texas, who had been friends with my father. And he says, hey, Mark, look, I know what you've been through. I know someone who might be able to help you. Her name's Alison Dubois, and here's a phone number you can call to get a reading. So I thought, okay, that's pretty synchronistic. You know, I'm watching this thing last night. Now I get a call to be able to get this reading from her. So she was popular even then, and it took me till August to get in to see her. But I did, and I went in with her knowing very little about me, very, very little. So I was pretty guarded because I wanted, a legitimate experience. I didn't really know her at the time. Now I came to know she's phenomenal. But 2 weeks before I saw her, though, a man that knew my dad gave me a box, and inside the box was a typewritten manuscript of a book called Your Psychic Potential, a guide to psychic development. I'm like, what is this? He goes, well, it's a manuscript your dad wrote, and it said 1973. And I'm like, well, where'd you get it? He goes, well, you were out of state at the time, and your dad was near passing, so he gave it to me for safekeeping. I'm like, that's been 12 years. Why are you giving this to me now? He says, I don't know. I just feel like I'm supposed to. So then 2 weeks later, I go into Allison, and one of the first things she says to me is, so I have your father here. Your father's here. And he's showing me a book, but I believe it's his book, but he's passing it to you. It's for you to take forward. Does that make sense to you? And I'm like, yeah, I think I understand that. And I actually did later on get that book published. So that was pretty wild. So that first year, I had a lot of these kinds of things happen and met some other mediums. Linda Williamson was a well-known medium in England. I met her through a third party, some people that were interested in the research end of things. I was in London for a demonstration by a different medium. And when I talked to Linda, she was wonderful. She gave me a reading that really gave me a lot of precognitive information, about what was going to happen and unfold in my life. So this was like fall of 2004. And she said, you're going to have this massive thing unfold. You're going to have people following you, a big organization. All you have to do is just be yourself and tell your truth. You don't need to do anything. They'll just come to you and it will come together. And today, 20 years later, I'm a co-founder of an organization along with Elizabeth Boyson of an organization called Helping Parents Heal. And we have 26,000 members worldwide, 165 affiliate locations. And we have a conference every other year. And we'll have one in August this year that'll draw 1,000 people. So all the stuff that she said came to pass. And I just felt like it was part of an unfolding path that I was supposed to go down. And it really was all about helping people heal, giving people hope, helping them understand that they're not just a meat robot, that they are a soul having a set of human experiences for their own soul's growth.
Yeah, no, it's cool that your energy kind of like made you help other people, through stuff like that. Because I couldn't imagine losing a kid. That's just not natural, not supposed to happen. Everyone. I don't like saying this out loud, but it is true. I think everyone is almost supposed to lose their parents. I think that's just, so my situation, I feel like it's just natural more so, even though it sucks. Like it's natural. I feel like it's super unnatural to lose a kid, and that's just crazy. And especially out of nowhere, brother. That's crazy. Like I couldn't imagine that. And it's cool that you use that power for good. And because it's a very detrimental time when things like that happen. You either become like a really bad person or a really good person almost. It's weird. There's no like in between, you can let anger and pain get the best of you, or you can just shine on whatever happens no matter what. And I think that's what you seem to take with the latter. And I like that. I respect it a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, you really are left with two paths to choose. I've seen people that go down the other path. It's not like they really become bad people, but they kind of curl up into a ball and they don't live their life. They just kind of hide away. They're miserable. They feel like if they're happy, they're not honoring their child, which is nonsense. But I would say the good news is the vast majority of people I've met who have been through this, they come in like, I've observed in our organization, people coming in a really dark place and then leaving at a much better place.
Good.
And so there's the things that contribute to that are, number one, support from family and friends. Not everybody has that. Some people have dysfunctional families, but if you have that, that's a big plus. And to, keep all the memories alive and know that that person still exists. It doesn't mean they can't be part of your life. It's just different, And so for that family support to be there to talk about the kid and not be afraid to talk about them, to meet other people who've been through the same thing so they can relate to you. You can form new friendships and, they understand what you've been through and can relate. To provide service to others when you're emotionally prepared at a point where you can do that, whether that's working a soup kitchen, a foundation of some sort that does good works. You got to let go of feelings of guilt. A lot of these parents will say, I could have done something. I should have stopped this. I should have seen the signs. And the reality is, in most cases, they couldn't have done anything. They just are blaming themselves or they're not releasing, they're holding hatred or anger towards another person they hold responsible, whether it be a doctor, someone with an accident or something else. If you don't forgive that other person, it's just going to tear you up. It's hurting you. You have to get there. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's an important aspect. And then the last thing is being open to evidence that there is an afterlife, that we're just doing this as a temporary play that we're in, if you will, acting out, this role that we're in now. It's not the only role we've ever been in or that we will ever be in. But being open to that. And for some people, maybe they've been brought up as in an atheistic way or very skeptical or whatever. Start by maybe reading books about it. You could read the near-death experience literature, going back as far as Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life, or more recently, Dr. Bruce Grayson has a new book out. I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it's very good. You got Dr. Eben Alexander, who I know, who's a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience. So you can read the near-death experience research. You can read books like mine that more focus on the mediumship, but still provide a broader scope of the various bodies of evidence. There's a lot of them. You have the mediumship, you have the near-death experience, you have after-death communications, like the thing that my wife had that I described to you, or my experience in that dream visit. You have what they call terminal lucidity of people who have been in a deep coma, and just before passing, they'll sit up and be coherent and talk to the people around them and acknowledge that they have deceased loved ones in the room with them, including some who are not known to have passed, which is pretty compelling because, okay, you might say, well, this person's identifying everybody that we already know died, but then there's another person in there that we think is still alive, but lo and behold, a few days later, you find out that person actually had died, and they were there visiting the person before they passed. And then you have the reincarnation research, like I know you touched on in another episode, going back to research done by Dr. Ian Stevenson, and there are others in the field too, and more currently it's like Jim Tucker at the University of Virginia Division of Perceptual Studies. He's kind of carried that torch too. So people can read about all those things because they form a mosaic. When you look at them all together, it's a pretty compelling picture that there's more. And the reason that's important because it gives you hope. People need hope to go on in life and to fulfill their purpose for being here and to be happy. We should be happy. We should have joy in our lives.
Yeah, like I read a book, The Journey of Souls, and it clicked with me before my mom was even passed away. It kind of clicked with me, and I felt that was real, and I felt that I've been here multiple times, and I'm not sure how real it is. I'm a Christian also, so it's like I'm not trying to be blasphemous or whatever, but I do feel that I've been here before, and I do believe in reincarnation, and I do believe the soul is definitely exists and just never dies. I really don't think it does. I don't think it's a coping mechanism as much as it is. I mean, this month I need a coping mechanism, but I was reading this for years before, So I definitely believe in all that stuff you said, and I think that you're right on serving people. I think you're right on helping people. I think that's the goal and of this life really is. I need to get that in my head most of the time. I'm not the best person, but I think that I need to work towards that, work volunteering at food pantries again, and just different stuff like that. I think however you can help this planet not be in more pain, and I think that you touched on so many things, and then you're super on point, man. It's great. It's cool talking to people that have like similar belief structures with that, because like I definitely do think currently I do believe in reincarnation. I don't know, it's subject to change. My mind's subject to change, but I do currently believe in that. I do believe I've been here multiple times. What are your thoughts on that? Like exactly? Do you think you've been here before?
Yeah, it's funny, but I never really gave it a whole lot of thought. But I dug up. My dad had a book published in 1970 called The Phoenix Oracle. And in that, he recounts a story involving the two of us, he and I, when I was only 3 years old. And I was riding in the car with him without a seatbelt on, because I'm old. And back then you didn't need a seatbelt, or it wasn't required. So I'm leaning up against the passenger door, and he's like, "Hey, Mark, scoot in a bit, scoot in. I don't want you to fall out." And then I apparently said to him, and I've got all of this down, I said, well, then if I fell out, I'd be broken up into a lot of pieces, but then I'd go up to heaven with the angels, but then they'd make a new body and make me come back down here again. And he said, "Have you been here before?" And I said, "Oh, many times." He goes, "Well, the last time, did you have any brothers or sisters?" 9 of them. Yes, 9. And then he started rapid firing all these questions. I just answered on point. Bam, bam, bam. He says, "Were you in the war?" And I said, "Yes, but I didn't die in the war." He goes, "Well, how did you die?" I said, "I just got old and tired." So, I think there's a lot to it. It makes sense to me. I mean, you see people at various levels of consciousness in this world. Some are elevated souls that are really good people, and they just glow. You meet them and you just feel that loving nature that they have. And then you have others who, they're not there. They're selfish, they're narcissistic, they're hateful, whatever. I don't think you can turn that around in one life necessarily. Maybe you can, but that's why it makes sense to me that you would go through a series. And if we're eternal souls, you probably have to manifest in different ways at different times. When we're on the other side and we're in spirit, what's that like? I mean, is it a physical reality? Maybe. Is it non-physical? But I could see the reason for us coming back and trying to get it right, to do better. So I don't think it's blasphemous at all. I think actually early Christianity embraced, some of the sects embraced the idea of reincarnation. And I think as the church became more powerful over time, a lot of things changed. And so divergent perspectives on those kinds of things were kind of crushed to conform with a standard dogma, if you will. And I think that's how we ended up where we are now. And people are leery of these things, or afraid of these things, or talking about them. And they're perfectly natural. And just like the psychic phenomena, the mediumship, those are just gifts of the Spirit. The Apostle Paul mentions in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, and these things are on display throughout the New Testament too. So I think there's a compatibility between these kinds of phenomena and somebody having a particular religious background or experience, and it's okay.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I still want to offend people, like like that. As I know I got a lot of fellow Christians walk, so I just want to make sure. But no, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with what you're saying, though. I definitely don't think it is either. I think I still fall in the confines of serving God and stuff. But no, I heard this one thing. I'm not sure how real this part is, but I heard this thing that we have to like live every life on Earth, and I thought that was very interesting. And it made you in the way I took it was like almost like there's no reason like to not be kind, because you're probably talking to yourself at a different time. I mean, like just how we're one consciousness experiences itself through a slow vibration kind of thing, and like how maybe we've had several. I mean, maybe we've had each other's lives even, and like why wouldn't you be kind to yourself in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I took that, and I thought that was a really powerful kind of like process of thinking. I thought, I don't know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we are definitely interconnected in some way to God and to each other and to all of being. I think there's this link of consciousness. One of the reasons I say that is, well, you look at whole mind over matter thing. I know you talked on a prior show about quantum physics, but the observer effect, mind does affect matter. That's been proven in the lab repeatedly. But the other one that's really mind-boggling is entanglement. And that essentially says, as I understand it, two particles that have ever come into contact in a special way could be separated as far apart as opposite ends of the universe, and whatever happens to one is instantaneously reflected in the other. Now, if you look at Einstein's special relativity, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. So if you're just looking at the surface level, you'd say, well, the other end of the universe, that's 20 billion light years away. That means if you're traveling 186,000 miles per second, it would still take you 20 billion years to get to the other side. But yet entanglement says you'd have that instantaneous contact. That tells me there's something, a surface below this that we don't see or feel, but we're part of. There's this interconnectedness. Is it just one soul and we're all different agents of that soul with different aspects and things, and we're all work together, I guess, in an odd manner to raise the level collectively over time? Maybe, I don't know. I definitely feel like an individual. I'm sure you do too. But I think when we pass, definitely from all the indications I've heard and from my dad's teachings and things and the trance work he's done, is that there's definitely a sense of more of a family, a connection, a less separation once we leave the body. The body creates a lot of that because we function through a brain. I don't think that the brain generates consciousness, because if it did, that would mean once we die, consciousness ends. But I think that it is a sifter of consciousness. It is a filter, a reducer. Well, why would it be that? Well, because we're living in a world where we have to, we had to survive. Ancient peoples had to survive. So you have to reduce your scope of information intake and understanding to the things that tie to survival. And now I think it's to narrow the scope of our experiences here to what we're doing in this world day to day. Whereas if you had like this full scope of all the knowledge and all the experience that there is, it would be overwhelming. You'd be so distracted, you wouldn't be able to do anything. So that kind of points to me that I think there is this interconnectedness, whether that means one soul or just a lot of interconnected souls. I don't know. Someone that I have respect for is named Bernardo Kastrup, and he deals in that topic quite a bit. He's super intelligent guy. I'm sure Mensa level or above, PhD, multiple PhDs. So if someone's interested in diving deeper into that, or you might even want to have him on your show.
I would. No, I'd totally do that. No, it's interesting. Like I feel, from what I understand, like, and what I've heard and what sounds real to me, at least, like I have no evidence of this in this current like life, but I do feel like all time's happening at once, and I feel like it's very slow. It's a slow vibration for us while we're here, while we're in this right now. It seems like, and like I tend to remember like before I was born, and I remember like kind of like you, it was almost like you could hyper focus on like certain areas, but multiple at the same time, and like, I don't know, it was really weird. Like Earth seemed like it was all happening at one time before I was born. Like I don't know if it was a memory or a dream though. I go back and forth on that thought. I think it was a memory though.
That's a common feature of near-death experiences too. People that come back will say time didn't exist, or at least not the same way. They could be gone 5 minutes and they feel like they've been gone weeks. And my dad and other mediums through their trance work have said, time is not the same. It's not as we think of it. There is no time really on the other side. Past, present, future are kind of all one. And that's one reason that they can predict things, because from the other side, there's this broader view. It's almost maybe like standing on a mountaintop and you could see past over here, present here, and future there. You could see them all at the same time. And while I believe in free will, I don't think we have total predestination. I think that there's a pattern or that we're going in that's a most likely outcome. And that's why you could predict some people could predict with a high percentage of accuracy, like my dad did. But it's never going to be 100%, because that would mean there's no free will.
Very true. Very true. Do you have you might have already answered this, but do you have medium-like abilities as well? Like, did that pass down to you to where you have like certain instincts as well?
I've had some experiences. I've never really focused on, again, like being my dad or being a practicing medium and doing readings for people. I have done test readings for friends just to see if I could do it, and was really surprised at how good I did. I think the craziest one that experience I had personally was for a 3-year stint. I was invited to go to this church in San Francisco called the Golden Gate Spiritualist Church to do a talk. And each time I went, I would bring a medium friend, Tina Powers. So I would do a talk and she would give messages to the people in the congregation. And so this particular year, Tina started bugging me about a message. She says, I think you're going to get a message. Will you share it if you get it? And I'm like, sure, if I get something, I'll get it. And so this particular church was founded in 1924 by a woman named Florence Becker, who, from the accounts I've heard, was very similar to my father in her abilities. She passed away in, I think, 1970, but the church continued on. So anyhow, Tina and we get there to the church that day. And again, she pesters me even as I go in the church. Mark, if you get a message, do you promise to share it? And I'm like, yes, Tina. So I go into, they had a healing room where they're doing laying on of hands healing for people. And I found a bench to a piano or an organ, and I sat down on it and shut my eyes. And I was really just trying to prepare to do my talk. So I was trying to quiet my mind, and I shut my eyes. While I was in that state, a name popped in. It was Max. And then immediately afterwards, the name Maxine. I thought, well, that's strange. Maybe it's not Max. Maybe it's Maxine. Now, I didn't hear that. I didn't see that. It came to me just like an idea would come to you, or like a thought would pop in. So I went up, I gave my talk, and at the end I said, Tina made me promise that if I got anything, I'd share it with the congregation. So I have to ask if the names Max or Maxine mean anything to anyone here. And the pastor of the church, his jaw dropped, and he's like, well, Max and Maxine were twins that were born to the church founder, Florence Becker. They were delivered stillborn, and they grew up on the other side in spirit. He says, I think we know who is here right now. And then after the service, he took me up and showed me a painting that I believe Florence Becker had done. It was a landscape with a long winding road, and at the end were two little figures. He says, that's Max and Maxine. So I thought that was pretty crazy, because to get even one name that are not common names was something, but to have two names, highly specific, tied to the church founder, I think that probably was as much for me as it was for anyone in the audience or the congregation, just so I trust it more, when I get it. But I haven't focused on doing that all the time. Maybe someday I'll work on it a little bit more, but I'm so busy right now. That's not really been a focal point for me.
Yeah. I was just like, my grandma was really good at like stuff like that, like in like moments it counted, like almost like she knew. There's like a story like it was in my family. It's kind of like a famous story through my family, like how my grandma would get mad. You remember those old campers that like hooked on the trucks, like in the 70s, 80s and stuff? My grandfather had one of those, and my grandma would like flip down. You kids are not riding back there. You're not doing this to like my mom and her sisters. And during that drive, it ended up falling off the truck. So my grandma had weird abilities like that, and I feel like I have weird abilities like I if I was just talking to you, I couldn't do it. Like it would just like, but it saved me a million times, and it's I know what not to do sometimes blindly, and it's not just like intuition. It's like this weird like, I mean, I know the difference. I have that also, but I'm saying like I can kind of, that's why I was wondering if it was genetic, because I had a feeling it was when you said like, and you described a story where it seems like it is genetic also, like it's a genetic kind of gift. And like I don't have like the full, like I know actual mediums. I'm not one of those, but I do have like really good intuition on things like in business and like other things like I almost know what everybody wants to hear, kind of like in a weird way. And I also know how to make them mad, which is also funny to me. I mean, I know both. I know what to say and what not to say. I think that's like my gift, kind of. But like my grandmother probably had that first, and that's what made me think about what was some of the specifics with your dad's medium things? Like, what are some like cliff notes on that, or like some cool stories with that he's used?
Sure. Well, actually, my grandmother, I interviewed her after my father had passed, because she outlived him, but she told me that she'd seen signs of it as early as age 3. They lived in rural Ohio, didn't have a telephone or anything. He would always know when Grandpa was coming. Grandpa's coming. Grandpa's coming. And they would start to time meals by that, because they knew how long it would take after he said that before Grandpa would show up. And one day he says, well, Grandpa's coming and he won't have his beard. And he had a beard like yours, I assume, something like that. And and his brothers are like, you're crazy. There's no way. Grandpa loved that beard. He'd never shave that. Sure enough, Grandpa shows up, no beard. He had been making taffy, and he got the beard dipped into the taffy. He had to shave it.
Oh.
So that's when he was young. Then at age 5, he went into the Columbus, Ohio Children's Hospital for corrective surgery on his eyes, because he was born cross-eyed. And after they were done, they had cupped and taped his eyes shut with bandages so he wouldn't mess with them. And he was actually restrained, tied down to a bed. And this nurse felt sorry for him and said, "I'll let you up if you promise not to touch the bandages." So he agreed. She went on her rounds, came back to find him bouncing a ball against the wall and catching it. She got, "Oh my God, he's taken the bandages off." Then she looked, but he hadn't. So that was even scarier to her. And so she got these doctors and said, "Look at this kid. He's doing this ball bouncing and catching it with, bandages over his eyes." And then they put him in a bed and started doing voice throwing exercises to try and trick him, and said, "Okay, someone's at the doorway saying, 'Okay, who's standing in front of you now?'" But he got it right every time. They'd have different doctors or nurses go in front of him, and he'd get that right. So those are kind of the early indicators. I'd say later on, stories. One, when my parents were first married, my mom was trying to be a vegetarian, and she'd gone a pretty good stretch of time with not eating meat. But one day, after a few months, she broke down and went out and got a burger. And Dad got home later that night, so he walks in the door, and the first words out of his mouth were, "So Shirley, did you enjoy your hamburger today?" So that was just kind of the day-to-day stuff that you would have with a dad like that.
Was that hard being a kid, getting anything by him?
It was, but not so hard for me. I had a brother that's almost 10 years older, and he was a teenager, and my parents later split. So he had to endure the teenage years with my dad there. So my dad thwarted his efforts at having somebody buy him beer when he was underage. And when he was drag racing his car and all that, my brother once said, "How would you like to have a dad like you?"
That's so funny. I knew what kind of mind the teenager had, so I was kind of wondering like what that would be like to have a psychic dad. That's crazy. These are two questions. I don't know how specific are your field, but maybe you got some cool opinions on them. Jenny's asking two questions. One, how common is reincarnation, and would you know if you're reincarnated? Sorry if discussed. I'm late. We did not discuss that per se. We did discuss reincarnation widely, but that we did not discuss.
I think it's not just common. I think it's universal. I think everybody reincarnates. How many times you do it probably depends on your rate of progression. When you get to a point where you don't need to come back here anymore and learn those lessons or go through those experiences. How would you know? I don't know. I think it's deep within your soul. I think really what it is whoever you are today is the makeup of all the experiences you've ever had in all lifetimes. So to me, that's the clearest thing. It's like if you're a compassionate person, somewhere along the line, you learn compassion, maybe. But you could undergo, you could get a therapist or a psychologist who does the regression therapy if you want to do that. I've not done that. I don't have a great desire to do it. I have a friend who does those. He's offered to have me do it. I might do it just for curiosity. But that would be one way. But I'd say, look at who you are now. The sum of your experiences made you who you are.
Yeah, I'm kind of like I believe you're talking about the hypnosis thing, right? The past life regression hypnosis thing. I'm kind of terrified to do that, but I also kind of want to do that also. Like I have mixed feelings on it. Like being hypnotized kind of like freaks me out a little bit. Like I have this weird like false sense of control on Earth. I know it's not even real, but I feel like that's a loss of control when I'm obviously intelligent enough to understand that like there's no control no matter what. But
right.
But
tell ourselves we're in control, right?
Yeah, the illusion. It's like not seeing how sausage is made. Like sausage is good. You don't want to see it. It's the same thing. It's like I'm terrified to be hypnotized, but I want the answers from it though. It's like I almost want to hear about that and like because I picture that in the afterlife too. It's like so say you lived 30 lives or more. You probably have a lot of people in those lives and like maybe some repeats. Some certain souls that stuck with you on the different rides. But I imagine there's a lot of people I knew in different ways. And if I lived multiple lives, I think about that quite a bit, and that's kind of an interesting kind of thing to me.
Yeah, there's a theory called soul groups that you travel in groups and you work together for this common goal to progress collectively. That makes sense to me. I know my dad. When I was little, I told my dad, I said, "My mama's been my mama before, but I've never seen you before." So as a little kid, it's up to like age 6 or 7 that kids that have these past life memories, they'll still have them and maybe recount them. After that, they fade away and then they just get absorbed into this world.
Yeah, I know. I hear a lot of kids have it. I didn't remember mine until I was like maybe like 21 or something. Like and not necessarily like I have like have like a glimmer, like a brief memory of being in like New York City in like the 50s maybe, or some time like that or something. But I don't really like, I don't know if that's even real. And I remember like being born and picking this life, and I don't know if that was real, but I remember like picking from like, there was like a video game like Mortal Kombat or something. You have like 4 people to choose from what life you want and stuff. And I think I don't know. And I remember being like this like weird soul prison, like for like ever, because like I guess low vibration life or something. I don't know the reason, but I assume.
I heard you mention that on another show of yours.
Yeah.
I do think there's a planning process before we come here for figuring out, well, what do we need? What do we need to accomplish, or what experiences do we need to have before we get there? How that all works, I don't know. I mean, I've heard a variety of theories about that. I did want to touch on the time thing once more, and a story with my dad that's one of the craziest that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So a number of years ago, I was going to do a talk, and I had about 100 people there. It was at a church, and this woman came up to me and she said, "Hey, Mark, I saw your dad a number of years ago, and I have a great story I want to share with you." I'm like, "Okay, well," and she actually gave it to me typewritten, but then she told it to me as well. Her name was Norma Poling. And she says, "Okay, well, I first saw your dad in 1963. And my dad would actually take Johnson & Johnson white medical tape, which is opaque and very sticky, tear 10 strips, cover his eyes, 3 black opaque blindfolds, and then more tape over that. And then he would ask people to write questions on pieces of paper, send them up." So she was there in the audience and trying to figure out, well, what should I ask? And she thought, well, will I ask, will I have a 4th child? Or should I ask, will I get my master's degree? So she only wrote the question down about the master's degree. She sent it up. And then at the end, my dad told her, yes, you get the master's degree. And she later did get it. Well, 5 years then passed, and she decided to go see my dad again. She was back in town. And this time she wrote an entirely new question. So my dad's going through these papers. He gets her paper and he says, "Norma Poling. Oh, Norma, I see you had that 4th child." Now think about it. That's something she only thought about 5 years earlier and never wrote down.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, I wonder how he was connected, man. That's a gift right there, man.
Yeah, my dad was something else. People could actually see videos of him when they go to my site. On the homepage, you'll see something that says, "See Richard Ireland in action." So you have to check it out. I think the best one is
at markirelandauthor.com.
Yeah, markirelandauthor.com. You'll see a link to my dad's stuff there. And he was on the Steve Allen show in 1971 doing that kind of demonstration. You get a sense for that. It was live TV. You know, they had the boom mic back then and all that. So he would, you know, what you'll see there is probably talking to 8 or 10 people, but in a real world thing, you'd probably have an audience of 100 people, and he'd probably give a detailed message to maybe half or more of that audience. So it was pretty cool stuff. And he was very specific and accurate. And one of my favorite stories that people love, I met my wife when I was 19 years old. And so on our second date, I'm like, "Well, you want to go to a club? You want to go out to dinner? You want to go to a movie? You want to go see my dad's demonstration?" She goes, "Oh, let's go do that." So I get there and I'm running late because I'm a kid. We roll in. My dad's already taped and blindfolded. He's giving messages to people. So I'm like, "Hey, Susie, write a question." And she goes, "Well, what do I write?" And I said, "Well, write a question about the future." And so she wrote, "Will my mom ever get married?" Because her mom had been divorced for a while and has been dating this guy for a period of time, but was non-committal. He wanted to get married, but she was non-committal. So she sends the paper up. It gets picked up by an attendant, dropped in the basket. A while later, my dad gets this message and he says, "Susie Sipe." Well, it's Susie Sipe. And he says, "Well, I think you've asked me about your mother and if she's going to be getting married." "Well, I don't know about your mother, my dear, but you've made your choice of men and he's with you tonight." Oh. And then I piped up and I said, "Dad, Susie's my date. This is Mark." He goes, "Oh my God, I just married off my own son." So that was pretty amusing.
Yeah, he predicted your marriage off the first date. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. He didn't even know I was there.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That got me hyped up a little bit, man. How long have you been married now?
Geez, it's 44 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That's my favorite number too. 44 is my favorite number.
Oh.
That's awesome, man. It's like I believe that. I wish I met my wife when I was that young, man. I didn't get to meet my wife till I was 28. You know, I was a long searching process for somebody. You know, like that's a luxury, man, to marry that young and have them in your life. So that's amazing, man. Like,
Yeah, we started early, that's for sure.
that's awesome, man. I love hearing stuff like that, man. In today's culture, that's kind of a forgotten thing, I think, and just marriage in general, at least. I mean, most people my age and younger don't even want to have to be married or anything. And so I think it's all, I love hearing that always. I just love that vibe. I love the true love concept. I love you know, I believe in it, and I just love it. That's cool, man. I love good, you know, and that's good.
Yeah, the statistics say you live longer if you're married. So maybe it's because she's looking out for me, or I'm eating more healthy food, or just have less stress in my life.
Yeah. But yeah, no, we're the ones that go first in the stats. So these girls end up living for like 90, 100 years. We end up, you know what I mean? They got the good deal out of it, probably. They got the real longevity out of it, probably. I married younger too, so that's why I made that mistake where I definitely, well, at least I'll outlive her to run on to deal with that part of it, you know.
Yeah.
But is your wife the same age or younger or what?
She's actually a little older than me, just a few
Okay.
months older. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I was wondering if you met her at 19, I figured you have to be around the same age. So I was like, I was going through that in my head. I was like, that's pretty cool though, man. Like, does she what is her thoughts on this afterlife thing too? Does she share your thoughts, or you guys debate, or like what?
Oh, yeah, totally. She's embraced everything, you know, in terms of what my dad's abilities are and the medium stuff. But she grew up a Lutheran, so just a, you know, middle of the road Protestant Christian background. But
Reformation,
yeah, she had an aunt, I guess, who had these abilities too. So it was not totally foreign to her.
See, I was wondering that. I had a weird feeling that there's some kind of like background in that too. I actually thought that. That's interesting, man. Like,
I don't know if this will show up. This is 43 years ago.
pull up your screen.
It's not working. Oh well.
That's when you got married 43 years ago.
Well, no, we were actually at a friend's wedding 43 years ago. So we were.
Oh, okay.
It'll be 45 on June 30th. It'll be 45 years. So.
My birthday's June 29th. That's crazy. Like, it's right by an important date to me too. No, that's awesome, man. I'll probably remember your wedding because it's so close to my birthday, which is hilarious. Cool. Just how numbers work. But no, that's 44. That's longer I've been on Earth, man. That's very that's cool, man, to hear. I just love hearing that like aspect of life. You know, I think it's a very underutilized kind of thing. I think most people, if they would admit that, would want something like that. I think most people are either too afraid to admit that or too afraid of being hurt. To where I think then, like most people, if they were honest, would say that they would want that. I mean, I think like a long-term, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, we have a couple of granddaughters now too, which is awesome.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Does any of your kids or grandkids have this psychic ability?
Yeah, you were talking earlier about it running in families. So I think my son does. He's shown that in a number of occasions. Like one example he gave me, there's his friends of his who not in the same state as him, but they were going. She was pregnant, and I guess they texted and said, "Well, we've come up with a name. Can you guess it?" And he just said Juniper, and they're like, "Oh, yep, that's it."
What?
Juniper? Yeah,
that's such an obscure name to guess too. That's crazy. Yeah. Like,
but it runs in family lines. I meant to bring that up before. Like my father's grandmother had it. My father's mother, my grandmother, she was a trance medium. And then there's some of it on my mom's side too, more with my aunts. And Dr. Julie Beischel, who runs Windbridge Research Center in Tucson, and they study mediums and psychic phenomena, but more mediumship. She's concluded, you know, through all her studies, it definitely runs in family lines. So there seems to be a genetic component. I guess it could be a socialization component, alternatively, or maybe in addition to, but there's definitely something to it.
Yeah, I think that sums it up the best. There's something to it for sure. Like when you brought up the social thing, that makes a lot of sense too. It could be taught. Yeah, no, it's just I never know. I see a lot of things are genetic, like being a psychic. I think too. We'll check out Mark's book, The Persistence of the Soul. You can go to markirelandauthor.com. Do you have audiobooks of this out yet by chance?
No, I get asked that a lot, but I think my publisher would probably consider it if I sell enough books to do the audio version. It seems like more people want audio now just because either people don't read books as much or they they want to just listen while they're driving in the car or whatever. So
exactly.
I'll bug them about it.
No, you have a good voice too, so you should do your own audiobooks because like you have a strong voice too. But I was basically gonna put your book in AI to listen to it. Like I did a little bit of that. Like I had like Google read it to me or something while I'm working because I love the concept of your book. I've only read a little bit of it. I wanted to read way more by the time I had you on, but I kind of skimmed it a little bit. I love it reminds me of Dolores Cannon kind of, or maybe that might be the wrong name. There's a PhD guy who hypnotized people, wrote The Journey of Souls. I forgot who wrote that, but your book somewhat reminds me of that in a different aspect, obviously.
Yeah, Journey of Souls was, I think, Michael Newton.
That's who it was. Yes. Dolores Cannon was this other girl who hypnotized people. But I think that he was a skeptic of it and then did it, I think. I believe that was the premise. But I know your book kind of reminds me of that in a lot of ways. And then that's where, I mean, I need to listen to it more or read it more rather to get a better idea of it.
I didn't even realize you could use AI to do that, but that's pretty cool. Is it Chat GPT or something else?
I might have just called it AI. I basically put it in Google Translate and just have it read to me.
Oh, I got you.
I was copy pasting it, bro, because I love listening to stories while I work and stuff, and that's why I kind of like having guests like you on here too. I can just like kind of listen to this tomorrow while I'm working and stuff, and like I mean just kind of take it in more because like right now I'm having to like react and stuff, but like when I'm just like working, I just like take in what everybody says more and stuff, and no, I'm sure you're busy. Do you have any other promo you want to throw on or anything? Like usually try to keep these about an hour or so.
No, that's it. If people just go to my website, they can see my events, the other shows I'm doing, stuff like that. Our Helping Parents Heal conference is sold out. But if somebody really wants to go, if you've had a kid pass and you're looking to heal from that, we have a wait list. You could get on that. Just go to again, there's a link to the Helping Parents Heal site on my site. So you'll find all those links on my site to get to those other pages. But thanks for having me on. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah, no, likewise. I'd love to have you back on some different subjects and stuff, or maybe similar. I mean, I definitely like this. I've been down this rabbit hole, this concept, and it was funny that I when I do my homework, like I was seeing that you had a similar experience that drew you to it, and I thought that was dark but interesting. I thought that I thought that was kind of like I definitely thought that was kind of interesting that you had the same kind of experience with like how long ago did you lose your son again? If that's not crazy to ask.
It's actually been 20 years.
Wow, you'd have been my age.
It was 2004 January. So.
Wow. He was born in 86?
He was born in 85.
Oh, okay, so he's a little bit older than me. Okay, yeah. That's I was born in 86 in June. That's crazy to think about. He'd be about my age, Paul. That's nuts to think about. And then where that takes you, where the grieving process and the process of understanding takes you, because your mind and heart and body want you almost. I mean, just speaking from personal experience, want to know what is going on, and like you want to figure it out. And I think that you're way ahead of where I'm at in that regard. That makes sense that it happened 20 years ago. It's like you seem like you've done a lot of the what I would call the rabbit hole research that I'm in right now, like of just listening to these podcasts and meeting people like yourself and just kind of like the whole. I think it's wildly interesting. I definitely believe in God and the afterlife and all that. And I believe I believe.
Well, as you continue reading the book or listening to the book, if you decide you'd like to have a reading with a really good medium, so without a doubt you've connected to your mom, send me a note and I'll hook you up.
Yeah. Let's do a show like that too. We'll do that an email or something after this, and I'd love to have a psychic on, like just kind of. I have had them before, but I definitely enjoy it. It's definitely something I enjoy, and like and with some of the rapid fire comments we get sometimes, like I mean people probably love that too. I know a couple people in the comments earlier. Personally, we're dealing with similar experiences. Like Roach was talking about his father here. Like here, I actually know him. That's my friend Zach. He had a very similar situation. Like he's about a year.
Very nice, Roach.
Yeah, he had a very similar situation that we're talking about, and I think that your book can reach a lot of people that are dealing with the same kind of thing I'm dealing with, the same kind of thing you dealt with. Where I think like you've kind of like genred it down to the exact situation you dealt with, like the parents with grieving kids, which I think is probably some of the darkest things I could even think about in life. So I think they need you. But I think even in broader terms, I think just people that have lost somebody, like I was drawn to your story because of that. And then like my mom, like I said, my mom's been sick for years. So I kind of, I've been drawn to that genre, like regardless. But go to markirelandauthor.com. Check out his book, very well spoken guy. He's on a lot of other shows also. This is probably the least successful show he's been on so far. So I appreciate his pity and his
Don't
charity.
be so hard on yourself.
I just think it's funny. I just think it's like reverse ego, man. I think it's funny just to like be self-deprecating sometimes. But no, I think it just makes me laugh, dude. But no, I think like you've been on a lot of good shows. Some of my favorite shows, Coast to Coast being one of them. That's one of my favorite shows, probably. I love that's a platform to kind of talk about whatever you want, and I try to do the same thing, give people the same platform. But yeah, MarkIrelandAuthor.com. If you're listening to this on something later, Persistence of the Soul is his book. Thank you very much for taking the time to be here, Mark. I appreciate you.
Cool. Take care. Have a good day and good week.
You too, brother. Thank you. And I appreciate you all watching this. Obviously, it's a Monday right now, and like we've got a lot of people watching on Rumble and other platforms like Twitch and other stuff. Join us every weekday at 8:30 Central Time, PM, obviously, and then it'll be on Spotify, Roku TV, everything after that. So I appreciate you all for watching as well. Because without guests like Mark, without people watching this right now, without sponsors, this would be a delusional conversation of a man in a weird room, you know. So I appreciate everybody taking part in this and making this a real thing. I'm out of here.